I already told you the place looks incredible. You have excellent taste as always.
I just want this weekend.
It will be perfect, I promise.
Grant Castellano stood in his downtown office, phone pressed to his ear, voice warm with the kind of intimacy that comes easy when you believe no one is listening. I already told you, the place looks incredible. You have excellent taste, as always. On the other end, Sienna Marsh laughed, that bright, unguarded sound that had become familiar to him over the past year. I just want this weekend to be perfect. No work, no distractions, just us. Grant glanced at his computer screen, at the calendar reminder blinking in the corner. Golf trip with the guys, it read. The lie had been so easy to type, so easy to sell. It will be perfect, he said. I promise. He ended the call and immediately opened his text messages. His thumb moved with practiced efficiency as he typed out a message to his wife. Heading out Friday for the golf weekend. Probably won't have great cell service. Don't worry if I'm hard to reach. He hit send and set the phone face down on his desk. Grant Castellano had become very good at managing compartments. Work in one box, Sienna in another, his wife Serena in a third. And the beauty of it, the thing that allowed him to sleep at night, was that none of the boxes ever had to touch. He could be fully present in each space, never lying outright, just strategically editing the truth depending on his audience. It was not cruelty, he told himself. It was complexity. Life was complicated. People grew apart. Marriages became partnerships of convenience rather than passion. These things happened. He had not set out to hurt anyone. He had just stopped pretending that 8 years of marriage meant he was no longer allowed to feel alive. And Sienna made him feel alive. She was sharp, ambitious, recently divorced, and refreshingly uncomplicated. She did not ask him to attend charity galas, or remember anniversary dates, or care about the small domestic negotiations that had turned his marriage into a low-level negotiation. She asked him about his ideas. She challenged him intellectually. She looked at him like he was still someone worth discovering. Serena, by contrast, had become background noise. Not unpleasant, not unloved, just there. She had a resort project, the thing she had been obsessing over for years. He could never quite remember the full name. She spent most of her time there now, which was fine. It gave her purpose. It gave him space. It was a system that worked, as long as no one asked too many questions. His phone buzzed. Serena's reply appeared on the screen. Okay, have fun. Be safe. 3 words. No questions, no requests for him to call when he arrived. No mention of missing him. Grant felt a flicker of something, not quite guilt, but its gentler cousin. He dismissed it. This was what they had become. Polite, parallel. And if he was honest, he preferred it this way. He pocketed his phone and returned to the spreadsheet in front of him, already thinking ahead to Friday. To the coastal drive. To a weekend where he would not have to be anyone's husband, just a man with a beautiful woman and no obligations. It did not occur to him to wonder why Serena had stopped asking questions. It did not occur to him that silence could be a strategy instead of surrender. It did not occur to him that his wife had her own compartments, her own plans, her own patience. But he would learn. 3 days later, Grant sat in a leather chair at his private club, scotch in hand, surrounded by men who had known him since college. His younger brother, Todd, leaned back with a grin that was equal parts amusement and judgment. So you are really doing this? Taking her to a couple's resort while your wife thinks you are playing 18 holes with us? Grant shrugged, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Serena does not care. She is practically living at that hotel of hers. I have not seen her more than twice in the past month. Hotel? Another friend, Marcus, interjected. I thought it was some boutique bed and breakfast situation. It is, Grant said. I mean, it is nice. She did a good job with it. But it is not like it is her career. It is a passion project, something to keep her busy. Todd raised an eyebrow. Does she know that is how you see it? Grant bristled slightly. I have always been supportive. I told her to keep her maiden name for the business. I never asked her to give it up. But let us be honest, she does not need to work. The place is profitable, sure, but it is not like we depend on that income. Marcus nodded slowly, though his expression was unreadable. And Sienna, she knows you are married? Of course she knows. I am not a liar. Todd snorted into his drink. You are literally lying to your wife right now about where you are going this weekend. Grant's jaw tightened. That is different. Serena and I have an understanding. We have been together for 8 years. Things change. She has her life, I have mine. We are just figuring out what comes next. Does she know you are figuring that out? Todd asked. Grant did not answer. Instead, he drained his glass and signaled for another round. The conversation shifted to safer topics: stock portfolios, vacation plans, upcoming elections. But Todd's question lingered in the air, unacknowledged, but not quite dismissed. When the evening ended and Grant returned to his empty penthouse, he found himself standing in the living room, looking at the framed photo on the mantel. It was from their wedding. Serena, in a simple white dress, smiling at him like he had hung the moon. He tried to remember the last time she had looked at him that way. He could not. He told himself it did not matter. People changed. Love evolved. What they had now was maturity, not passion. And that was fine. That was realistic. He went to bed and slept soundly, untroubled by doubt. On Thursday afternoon, Sienna called him, voice bright with excitement. I just confirmed everything with the resort. They have us in the Monarch Suite. Ocean views, private balcony, the works. I also booked us a couple's massage on Saturday and a wine tasting Friday night. Does that sound good? Grant smiled, leaning back in his office chair. Sounds perfect. What is this place called again? Halcyon Ridge. Have you heard of it? The name triggered something, a faint sense of familiarity, but Grant could not place it. Serena had mentioned so many details over the years: design concepts, vendor problems, staffing challenges. He had nodded through most of it, retaining only the general impression that she was building something and it was going well. I do not think so, he said. But it looks beautiful in the photos. It really does. The reviews are incredible too. Apparently the owner is very hands-on. People say she has impeccable taste and really cares about the guest experience. Good. You deserve to be spoiled. Sienna laughed. We both do. I have been looking forward to this all week. After the call ended, Grant pulled up the website for Halcyon Ridge. The landing page featured a stunning image of a coastal property at sunset, all warm stone and organic design, gardens that seemed to grow directly out of the landscape. He skimmed the About page, noted the accolades, the press mentions, the philosophy of creating spaces where people could feel both luxurious and at home. He saw the name Serena Hankinson listed as founder and owner, but it did not register. Hankinson was her maiden name, the one she used for business, and he had long ago stopped paying close attention to the details of her work life. He assumed it was a management company, a partnership, something corporate and impersonal. He closed the browser and returned to his emails, already mentally checked out for the weekend. Friday morning arrived cool and clear. Grant packed light, casual clothes, a blazer for dinners, running shoes he probably would not use. He texted Serena a final courtesy message. Heading out now. Hope your week is going well. Her reply came an hour later, after he was already on the road. Drive safe. I will be at the resort all weekend if you need anything. He did not ask which resort she meant. He assumed she meant her resort, wherever that was. He did not know the name of the town. He had never visited. She had invited him to the opening event years ago, but he had been traveling for work. She had not asked again. The drive north was beautiful. The highway hugged the coastline, cliffs dropping away to the ocean, light shifting through fog and sun in unpredictable patterns. Grant felt the tension of the week begin to loosen from his shoulders. This was what he needed. Space, simplicity, a weekend where he did not have to perform the role of responsible husband or high-powered executive. Just Grant, just present. He met Sienna at a cafe an hour outside the city. She slid into the passenger seat of his car, smelling like expensive perfume and excitement. Ready? She asked, leaning over to kiss his cheek. Absolutely. They drove the rest of the way together, talking easily about work gossip and upcoming projects and a book she had just finished. It was comfortable, uncomplicated, exactly what Grant had convinced himself he deserved. When they turned off the highway onto a narrow coastal road, Sienna checked the directions on her phone. We are close, just a few more miles. The road wound through dense trees, then opened suddenly onto a vista that made Sienna gasp. Halcyon Ridge sat perched on a bluff overlooking the ocean, all glass and stone in deliberate beauty. Gardens terraced down toward the cliffs. A central courtyard featured a fountain surrounded by native grasses that moved in the wind like water. The architecture was modern but warm, designed to complement the landscape rather than dominate it. Wow, Sienna breathed. This is even better than the pictures. Grant nodded, genuinely impressed. Whoever had designed this place had understood something essential about luxury. that it should feel inevitable, not imposed. They parked and walked toward the entrance, a covered pathway lined with succulents and driftwood sculptures. The reception area was open and airy, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the ocean view. Soft music played, something instrumental and soothing. The scent of eucalyptus and sea salt hung in the air. A young woman behind the desk looked up and smiled. "Good afternoon. Welcome to Halcyon Ridge. Checking in?" "Yes," Sienna said. "Reservation under Marsh." The woman's fingers moved over the keyboard, then her smile widened. "Of course, Ms. Marsh and Mr. Castellano. We have you in the Monarch Suite. Let me get your keys." Grant noticed the way her eyes flicked briefly toward a door behind the desk, just for a second, before returning to her screen. It was such a small thing, barely noticeable. He dismissed it. The check-in process was seamless. They were offered sparkling water with cucumber, given a brief overview of the property, handed elegant key cards in small linen envelopes. "Your suite is ready," the woman said. "Miguel will show you the way. If you need anything during your stay, please do not hesitate to ask. Our owner, Miss Hankinson, is on property this weekend and wants to ensure every guest has an exceptional experience." Grant barely registered the name. He was already following Miguel down a stone pathway toward the guest suites, Sienna at his side, both of them marveling at the attention to detail in every corner. The Monarch Suite exceeded expectations. The space was large but not ostentatious, designed with the kind of thoughtful minimalism that only comes from someone who understands how people actually move through a room. The bed faced the ocean through floor-to-ceiling windows. The bathroom featured a soaking tub positioned to overlook the garden. Handmade tiles in soft blues and greens lined the shower. Every surface, every texture, every choice felt intentional. Sienna ran her hand along the edge of the tub and laughed. "Whoever designed this place has incredible taste." Grant agreed absently, already pouring 2 glasses of the champagne that had been waiting for them, chilled and ready. On the desk near the window was a handwritten note on thick, textured paper. The script was elegant, the pen strokes confident. "We are honored to host you at Halcyon Ridge. Please do not hesitate to reach out if there is anything we can do to make your stay exceptional. S.H." Grant read it, felt a flicker of familiarity at the initials, but the thought slipped away before it could form into recognition. Sienna held up her glass. "To a perfect weekend." Grant touched his glass to hers. "To no distractions." They drank, and the world outside their suite became irrelevant. That evening they dined at the resort's restaurant, a space that managed to feel both intimate and open. Soft lighting, live acoustic music from a guitarist in the corner, tables positioned to maximize privacy without isolation. The tasting menu was extraordinary. Each course arrived like a small piece of art, local ingredients prepared with precision and creativity. Halibut with charred lemon and herb oil, duck with cherry reduction and crispy polenta. Dessert was a deconstructed lemon tart that tasted like summer and memory. Sienna was effusive in her praise. When their server returned to clear the dessert plates, she smiled up at him. "Please tell the chef this was incredible, truly one of the best meals I have had in years." The server, a young man with an easy professionalism, nodded. "I will pass that along. Our culinary program was designed in collaboration with our owner. She has very specific ideas about what food should feel like here." "The owner?" Sienna asked, leaning forward with interest. "Is she a chef?" "Not professionally, but she is deeply involved in the menu development. She believes food should tell a story about the place. Everything you ate tonight was sourced within 50 miles. "That is remarkable," Sienna said. "Is she around? I would love to tell her in person how much we have enjoyed everything." "She is on property this weekend, yes, very hands-on. You will likely see her tomorrow." Grant barely listened to the exchange. He was relaxed, pleasantly full, his attention drifting toward the ocean visible through the restaurant's windows. The sun had set, leaving behind a gradient of purples and deep blues. He felt the week's stress continuing to dissolve, replaced by the easy contentment of good food and better company. But as they stood to leave, Grant caught sight of a woman across the restaurant, speaking quietly with the sommelier near the wine display. She had her back to him, but something about her posture, the way she gestured with one hand while holding a wine glass in the other, tugged at his attention. He tried to see her face, but she turned and walked toward the kitchen before he could focus. The moment passed. He dismissed it. Sienna looped her arm through his as they walked back to their suite, the ocean air cool and salt-laced. "This place is magic," she said softly. Grant agreed. He felt lighter than he had in months, unburdened, free. He had no idea how quickly that feeling would shatter. While Grant slept soundly in the Monarch suite, Serena Hankinson sat in her private office reviewing the weekend schedule. It was late, nearly midnight, but sleep had become elusive in recent weeks. She kept herself busy instead. Occupancy reports, vendor invoices, staff schedules, the minutiae of running a property that required constant attention. But tonight, the spreadsheets in front of her were just decoration. She was not really seeing the numbers. Her mind kept circling back to the same image, Grant and Sienna, sitting at table 12 in her restaurant, laughing over dessert, completely unaware that every detail of their experience had been curated by the woman Grant had spent 8 years quietly erasing. Serena had watched them from the kitchen pass-through. She had seen the ease between them, the way Sienna leaned forward when she spoke, the way Grant's face softened in a way it had not for Serena in years. And she had felt, what? Anger? Sadness? No. She had felt clarity. This was not speculation anymore, not suspicion. It was confirmation. Grant had not just emotionally moved on. He had replaced her. And he had done it so smoothly, so completely, that he had not even bothered to end the marriage first. He had just shifted her into a smaller and smaller corner of his life, assuming she would stay there quietly, grateful for whatever attention he offered. Serena closed the laptop and stood, walking to the window that overlooked the darkened gardens. She had built this place from nothing, from vision and loans and sleepless nights and a refusal to accept funding that would have compromised her autonomy. Grant had offered to invest once early in their relationship. She had said no. He had asked why, and she had told him the truth. She needed to know she could build something that was entirely hers. He had said he understood. He had even seemed proud. But somewhere along the way, he had stopped seeing her work as significant. It had become a hobby in his mind, a cute project, something she did to fill time. She wondered when it had happened. When had she become optional? When had he looked at their marriage and decided it was negotiable? Or had it always been this way, and she had just been too busy accommodating him to notice? Serena thought back to the early years, the way she had rescheduled site visits to make his dinner parties, the way she had skipped conferences to be home on weekends he promised to be available, only for him to cancel last minute. The way she had learned to tell her stories in abbreviated form because his attention would drift if she went into too much detail. Little erasures, small concessions, death by 1,000 accommodations, and Grant had learned exactly what she had taught him, that her needs were flexible, that her time was negotiable, that she would always make room for him, even when he made no room for her. The affair was not the betrayal. The betrayal was the assumption that she would never matter enough to confront him. Serena turned away from the window and returned to her desk. She opened the booking file for the Monarch suite and read through the details again. 2 guests, 2 nights, checkout scheduled for Sunday at 11. She could end this now. She could walk down to their suite, knock on the door, force the confrontation Grant had been avoiding. She could call him out in front of Sienna, expose the lie, detonate everything in one cathartic explosion. But that would give him the narrative. He would apologize, probably. He would frame it as a mistake, a moment of weakness, something that got out of hand. He would promise to end it with Sienna, to recommit to the marriage, to do better. And Serena would be left in the position of having to decide whether to forgive him or leave him, and either choice would be shaped by his timeline, his revelation, his terms. No, Serena wanted something different. She wanted him to see her, not the version of her that had spent 8 years bending to fit his life. The version of herself that had always existed, the one he had been too distracted to notice. The woman who had built something extraordinary while he was busy underestimating her. She wanted the moment when his carefully separated worlds collided, and he realized he controlled neither. So she would not confront him. She would simply be present, visible, professional. The owner of the space he had foolishly brought his mistress into, unaware that every detail around him was shaped by the wife he had forgotten to see. Serena opened her planner and made a note for the morning. Greet guests in courtyard, 10 a.m. Her handwriting was steady. Her heart rate was calm. She was not interested in revenge. She was interested in reclamation. The previous weeks had been an exercise in surgical precision. When the booking inquiry had first arrived, Serena had been at her desk reviewing quarterly financials. Timothy, her general manager, had knocked softly and entered with a tablet. We have a reservation request for the Monarch suite. High-profile guests requesting discretion. Dates are the 17th through the 19th. He had handed her the tablet, and Serena had glanced at the screen with professional detachment. Then she had seen the names. Grant Castellano, Sienna Marsh. The world had gone very quiet. She remembered the physical sensation vividly, the way her hands had gone cold, the way sound had seemed to muffle, like her ears were filled with water, the way her lungs had continued to function even though she could not feel herself breathing. Timothy had been watching her carefully. Is there a problem? Serena had looked up, met his eyes, and made a choice. No, approve the booking, give them the best suite, make sure every detail is perfect. Timothy's expression had shifted, just slightly. He was too professional to ask questions, but he was not stupid. He had worked with Serena for 5 years. He knew she was married. He knew her husband's name. Are you certain? He had asked quietly. I am. He had nodded once and left the office, closing the door behind him. Serena had sat alone with the information, waiting for the emotional response to arrive. Rage, grief, devastation. Instead, she had felt a strange, cold clarity. Grant was bringing Sienna here, to her resort, to the place she had built with her own vision and refusal to compromise. He was doing it because he did not know. He did not know because he had never asked. He had never asked because he had never cared enough to pay attention, and that inattention was about to cost him everything. Serena had spent the next 2 weeks preparing. Not sabotage, not traps, just excellence. She had ensured the Monarch suite was flawless. New linens, fresh flowers, the best champagne in the cellar. She had personally reviewed the tasting menu with the chef, making small adjustments to ensure it would be unforgettable. She had briefed the staff without explaining why. We have VIP guests arriving on the 17th. I want everything to be perfect. I will be handling some of the interactions personally. No one questioned her. They trusted her judgment. And Serena had spent the quiet evenings walking the property, reconnecting with every choice she had made. The stone she had selected for the pathways, the native grasses she had insisted on for the gardens, the way the light moved through the windows at different times of day. She had built this, not Grant, not his money, not his connections, her, and he was about to learn exactly what that meant. Saturday morning arrived with fog rolling in from the ocean, softening the edges of the world. Grant woke slowly, the unfamiliar luxury of the suite disorienting him for a moment before memory returned. He was at Halcyon Ridge, with Sienna, no obligations, no schedule. He stretched and looked over at Sienna, still asleep beside him, her face peaceful in the diffused light. He felt content, justified even. This was what life should feel like: ease, pleasure, connection. He slipped out of bed quietly and made coffee using the French press on the kitchenette counter. The suite had thought of everything. He carried his mug to the balcony and stood looking out at the ocean, visible now as the fog began to lift. It was beautiful here. He could see why the place had such strong reviews. Whoever had designed it understood the balance between luxury and authenticity. Nothing felt forced. Everything felt intentional. He wondered idly what Serena's place looked like. He had seen photos once, years ago, but he could not recall the details. It was smaller than this, he thought. More boutique. She had always talked about creating intimate experiences, prioritizing character over scale. This place had both. Grant finished his coffee and went back inside to shower. By the time he emerged, Sienna was awake, scrolling through her phone and laughing at something. "Good morning," she said, looking up. "I was just reading more reviews of this place. Listen to this one. Halcyon Ridge is what happens when someone understands that luxury is not about excess, it is about attention. Every detail feels personal. You can tell the owner loves this place." "It does feel personal," Grant agreed, toweling his hair. "Whoever owns it clearly knows what they are doing." "I want to meet her," Sienna said. "The owner. I know that sounds silly, but I feel like I would like her." Grant smiled. "Then we will ask. Maybe she will be around today." They dressed and headed to the main building for breakfast. The dining room was less formal in the morning, set up as a buffet with an omelet station and fresh pastries and fruit arranged like art. They filled their plates and chose a table near the windows. The fog had fully lifted now, revealing a brilliant blue sky and an ocean that sparkled in the late morning light. As they ate, Grant noticed other guests moving through the space with the easy contentment of people on vacation. A couple in their 60s holding hands. A younger woman reading a book in the corner. A family with 2 small children who were surprisingly well behaved. Everyone seemed happy, relaxed, like the resort had cast some kind of spell that made it impossible to carry stress across the threshold. Grant felt it too. The weight he had been carrying for months, managing work, managing Sienna, managing Serena, managing the competing narratives of his life, had lifted. Here, he was just a man on a weekend trip. Simple, uncomplicated. He wished it could always be this easy. After breakfast, they explored the property. The meditation labyrinth in the garden, the library lounge with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and deep leather chairs, the spa entrance, all Zen minimalism and the scent of lavender. They booked massages for the afternoon and signed up for a coastal hike the next morning. Everything was easy. Everything was perfect. At one point, Sienna stopped in the library and picked up a coffee table book from the display. It was a large-format book, professionally designed, with the title Halcyon Ridge, a vision realized embossed on the cover. "Look at this," she said, flipping it open. The book was part photography, part narrative. It documented the development of the resort from concept to opening. Early sketches, construction photos, interviews with the architect and landscape designer, essays about the philosophy behind the project. Sienna turned pages slowly, admiring the images. "This is so cool. It is like getting to see the whole story of how this place came to be." Grant glanced over her shoulder politely, only half paying attention. Then Sienna stopped on a page near the middle. It was a full-spread photograph of a woman standing in front of the unfinished main building, arms crossed, smiling at the camera with a mix of pride and exhaustion. She was wearing jeans and a work jacket, her hair pulled back, dirt on her boots. The caption beneath the photo read, "Serena Hankinson, founder and owner on site during construction, June 2019. Sienna studied the image. "She is beautiful, and she built all this herself. That is incredible." Grant looked at the photo, and the world stopped. He knew that face. He knew that smile. He knew the way her eyes crinkled slightly at the corners when she was genuinely happy, the expression she used to give him before it faded into something more polite and distant. Serena Hankinson, his wife's maiden name, his wife's face, his wife's resort. The realization did not arrive gently. It hit him like cold water, like a physical blow. His vision narrowed. His breath caught. Halcyon Ridge. This place. This beautiful, acclaimed, flawlessly designed place. The one Sienna had chosen. The one he had agreed to without asking questions. This was Serena's. He was standing in his wife's resort, with his mistress, and Serena knew. She had to know. The booking had her name on it. His name. She had approved it. She had given them the best suite. She had made sure everything was perfect. She knew. The implications began to cascade through his mind, each one worse than the last. How long had she known about Sienna? Had she known for weeks? Months? And she had said nothing. She had not confronted him. She had not asked questions. She had just waited, and now he was here, in her territory, on her terms. Grant's hands went cold. His heart began to race. He felt exposed, vulnerable, like standing naked in a spotlight with nowhere to hide. Sienna was still admiring the photo, oblivious. "I really hope we run into her. I want to tell her how much we love it here." Grant could not speak. His throat had closed. His mind was spinning, trying to calculate the next move, the way to fix this, the way to escape before what? Before Serena appeared, but she already knew they were here, which meant she had already decided how this would play out. And Grant, for the first time in 8 years, had absolutely no control over the outcome. Sienna looked up at him, her smile fading. "Hey, are you okay? You look like you have seen a ghost." Grant forced himself to breathe. I need some air." He turned and walked out of the library, moving quickly, his mind racing. He needed to think. He needed to figure out what to do. He needed to call Serena, to explain to what? What could he possibly say? He stepped outside into the garden courtyard, the sun bright and warm, the sound of the fountain behind him peaceful and relentless. And then he saw her. Serena was standing near the fountain, speaking with an older couple who were checking out. She was dressed in elegant professional attire, tailored slacks, a soft blouse, understated jewelry. Her hair was down. She looked polished, composed, completely in command of the space around her. She laughed at something the man said, her smile warm and genuine. She shook both their hands, thanked them for staying, and wished them safe travels. Then she turned and her eyes met Grant's. For a moment, neither of them moved. Grant felt like he was falling, like the ground had disappeared beneath him. He did not know what to do, did not know what to say. Serena's expression did not change. She did not look angry. She did not look hurt. She looked calm, professional, like he was any other guest she might greet on any other day. She walked toward him, and Grant realized, with a clarity that felt like drowning, that he had made a terrible, irreversible mistake. Serena crossed the courtyard with the unhurried grace of someone who owned every stone beneath her feet. Grant stood frozen, his mind racing through scenarios, excuses, explanations. None of them felt adequate. None of them would change the fact that he was standing in her resort with another woman, and she had known they were coming. When Serena reached him, she stopped at a professional distance. Close enough to speak comfortably, far enough to maintain formality. She smiled. It was warm, practiced, the smile she had perfected for welcoming guests. "Good morning. I hope you are enjoying your stay." Her voice was steady, pleasant, utterly devoid of personal inflection. She could have been speaking to any stranger. Grant opened his mouth. No sound came out. Serena tilted her head slightly, her expression shifting to polite concern. "Is everything all right with the suite? If there is anything we can adjust to make your visit more comfortable, please let me know." The word "your" hung in the air between them. Not our, not we, your. Grant finally found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. "Serena, She raised a hand gently, her smile never wavering. "I am sorry. Let me introduce myself properly. I am Serena Hankinson, owner of Halcyon Ridge, and you must be Mr. Castellano. We are so pleased to have you here." She extended her hand. Grant stared at it. The formality was deliberate. The distance was intentional. She was offering him a choice: play along with the professional fiction, or force the confrontation here, now, in the open courtyard, where other guests were beginning to gather for the late morning activities. He took her hand. It was briefly held, then released. Her skin was warm. Her grip was firm. There was no tremor, no hesitation. "Thank you," he managed. "It is beautiful here." "That is very kind. We have worked hard to create a space where people can feel at ease. I understand you are here with a companion?" The question was neutral. The subtext was a knife. Grant nodded, unable to form words. "Wonderful. I do hope you both take advantage of everything we offer. The coastal hike tomorrow morning is particularly lovely this time of year. The light is extraordinary." She was speaking to him the way she might speak to a travel blogger or a journalist. Warm, informative, completely detached from any personal history. Grant felt something close to panic rising in his chest. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "Privately?" Serena's expression remained pleasant, but something flickered in her eyes. Not anger, something colder, something like pity. "Of course, my office is just through the main building, if you would like to follow me." She turned and walked toward the entrance, her posture relaxed, her pace unhurried. Grant followed, feeling like a child summoned to the principal's office. They passed through the reception area, where the young woman behind the desk looked up and smiled at Serena, who returned it with easy warmth. They walked down a hallway lined with black and white photographs of the coastline. At the end was a door with a small plaque that read simply, "S. Hankinson, owner." Serena opened it and gestured for him to enter. The office was beautiful in the same way the rest of the resort was beautiful. Thoughtful, warm, personal. A large desk faced windows that overlooked the garden. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with design volumes and hospitality texts. On the opposite wall were framed architectural drawings of the resort, early sketches that showed the evolution of the vision. Serena closed the door and moved behind her desk. She did not sit. She stood, arms relaxed at her sides, waiting. Grant felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Serena, I did not know this was your place. I swear I did not." "I know." Her voice was calm. "You did not know because you have never asked. I have mentioned the name dozens of times over the years. Halcyon Ridge. I showed you photos. I invited you to the opening. But you were traveling for work, and I did not push. And after that, I stopped trying to share it with you. So no, Grant, I do not think you knew. But the reason you did not know is because you never cared enough to remember." The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. "That is not fair," he said weakly. "I have always supported you." "You tolerated me," Serena corrected gently. "There is a difference. You tolerated my little hotel project because it kept me busy and out of your way. You never saw it as significant. You never saw it as real work. And you certainly never saw it as something that could matter more to me than being available whenever you decided to come home. Grant's jaw tightened. I have been a good husband. Serena smiled, and it was the saddest expression Grant had ever seen on her face. You have been a polite husband. You have been a distant husband. You have been a husband who assumed that as long as you did not actively hurt me, you were doing enough. But good? No, Grant, you have not been good. And I've not been good either. I taught you that I would accept whatever you offered. I made myself small so you could feel big, and I resent myself for that as much as I resent you. Grant felt his control slipping, felt the careful compartments of his life collapsing into each other. So, what is this? He demanded, his voice rising. Revenge? You approved the booking knowing I was bringing her here so you could humiliate me. Serena's expression did not change. I approved the booking because you requested a service that my resort provides. You are a guest here, Grant. I am treating you exactly as I would treat any guest. If that feels like humiliation, perhaps you should ask yourself why. You know why I am here, Grant said, his voice rough. You know what this looks like? I know exactly what it looks like. You brought your mistress to my resort because you did not know it was mine. You did not know because you have spent 8 years not paying attention to anything about me that did not directly serve your comfort. And now you are standing in a space I built, surrounded by evidence of who I actually am. And you are angry because I am not making this easier for you. Grant had no response. Every defense he tried to construct crumbled before he could speak it. Serena finally moved, walking to the window and looking out at the garden. I am not going to make a scene, Grant. I am not going to confront you in front of her or create some dramatic spectacle. That is not who I am. But I'm also not going to pretend this is not happening. You are here, she is here, and I am here. And for once, you are going to have to exist in a space where I am not the one accommodating your comfort. What do you want me to do? Grant asked, and he hated how helpless he sounded. Serena turned to face him. I want you to be a guest. Enjoy your stay. Take your hikes and your massages and your romantic dinners. And when you check out on Sunday, you will leave, and then we will have a different conversation about what comes next. But that conversation will not happen here. This is my place, Grant. You do not get to bring your mess into my space and expect me to clean it up for you. She walked to the door and opened it, a clear dismissal. Grant stood there, trapped between the urge to argue and the realization that he had no ground to stand on. Does she know? He asked quietly. Sienna, does she know who you are? Not yet, Serena said. But she will, because you are going to tell her, or I will. But either way, you do not get to keep hiding. Grant walked to the door, stopped beside her. I never meant to hurt you. Serena met his eyes, and for the first time, he saw something raw beneath the composure. Not anger, grief. I know. That is what makes it worse. You did not hurt me on purpose. You just stopped seeing me at all. She stepped back, holding the door open. I have work to do. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Grant left, and the door closed softly behind him. He found Sienna in the library lounge, still looking through the book about the resort. She looked up when he entered, her smile fading when she saw his face. What happened? You have been gone for almost half an hour. I was starting to worry. Grant sat down heavily in the chair across from her. He had to tell her. Serena had made that clear. And even if she had not, he could not sustain the lie anymore. Not here. Not in this place where every detail screamed Serena's name. I need to tell you something, he said. Sienna closed the book, her expression shifting to concern. Okay, you are scaring me a little. The owner of this place, Serena Hankinson. What about her? Grant forced himself to meet her eyes. She is my wife. The words landed like stones in still water. Sienna's face went blank, processing. Then her eyes widened. Your wife, the one you said was distant and focused on her work and basically living a separate life. Yes. The one you said would not even notice you were gone this weekend. Grant nodded. Sienna looked down at the book in her lap, at the photograph of Serena standing in front of the unfinished building, smiling. This is her place, Sienna said slowly, as if testing the words. This entire resort, she built this. Yes. And you brought me here, to her resort, for a romantic weekend. Grant's silence was answer enough. Sienna stood abruptly, the book falling to the floor. Did you know? Her voice was tight, controlled. Did you know this was hers when we booked it? No, I swear, I had no idea. How? Sienna demanded. How could you not know your own wife owns this place? It is all over the website. Her name is everywhere. She uses her maiden name for business. I did not make the connection. I have never been here. She invited me once years ago and I could not make it. And after that I stopped paying attention. Sienna stared at him, and he could see the exact moment her perception of him shifted. You told me your marriage was basically over. You said you were staying together out of habit, not love. You made it sound like she did not care what you did. I thought that was true. Or you convinced yourself it was true, because it was easier than admitting you were lying to both of us. Grant could not argue. Sienna wrapped her arms around herself, looking suddenly very young and very betrayed. Does she know I am here? Did you tell her? She knows. She approved the booking. My name was on it. She has known we were coming the whole time. The full weight of it seemed to hit Sienna all at once. Her face flushed. Oh my God, she has been hosting us, making sure everything was perfect, being professional while I. She covered her mouth with her hand. I told the staff how much I loved this place. I said I wanted to meet her. I said she must be an amazing person, and the whole time she knew I was sleeping with her husband. Sienna. No. She held up a hand. Do not. Just do not. She grabbed her bag from the chair. I am leaving. Where are you going to go? I do not know. A hotel, home, anywhere but here. I am not staying in this woman's resort while she knows what I am to you. I have more self-respect than that. She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. You told me she did not care about you anymore, that she was too focused on her work to notice you were unhappy. But she built this, Grant, this beautiful, thoughtful, incredible place, and you did not even bother to learn its name. So maybe the problem was never that she stopped seeing you. Maybe you just never saw her at all. She left. Grant sat alone in the library, surrounded by images of his wife's vision, and felt the full weight of his choices settle onto his shoulders. By early evening, the other guests at Halcyon Ridge had begun to notice that something was off. It was subtle at first. The man from the Monarch Suite sitting alone at the bar, ordering his third scotch before dinner. The woman who had checked out abruptly that afternoon, her face pale and eyes red, asking for a car service to the nearest town. People notice because Halcyon Ridge was the kind of place where noticing was part of the experience. The staff paid attention. The other guests, relaxed and observant, picked up on the currents of emotion that moved through the shared spaces, and Serena, ever present and gracious, moved through it all with perfect composure. She greeted guests in the dining room. She consulted with the chef about a dietary restriction for the next day's brunch. She approved a wine pairing suggestion from the sommelier. She laughed with an older couple celebrating their 40th anniversary, genuinely delighted by their story. She did not look toward the bar where Grant sat nursing his drink. She did not need to. Her presence alone was the statement. This was her space. These were her guests. This life, this vision, this accomplishment existed entirely because of her, and Grant was finally, unavoidably, forced to see it. One of the guests, a woman in her 50s who had been staying at the resort for the past 3 days, approached Serena near the entrance to the dining room. "Excuse me, Miss Hankinson?" Serena turned with a warm smile. "Please, call me Serena. How can I help you?" "I just wanted to tell you that this has been one of the most wonderful experiences of my life. My husband and I have stayed at luxury resorts all over the world, but this place is different. It feels like you actually care about us being here." Serena's smile deepened, and this time, it was entirely genuine. "That means more to me than you know. We do care, every guest, every stay. That is the whole point." The woman hesitated, then continued. "Can I ask you something? I hope this is not too personal." "Of course." "How did you do this? Build something like this on your own? It must have taken incredible strength." Serena considered the question carefully. "It took clarity," she said finally. "I knew what I wanted to create, and I knew I could not compromise that vision to make it easier or faster, so I did it slowly, carefully, on my own terms. And there were moments when I wanted to give up, when it felt too hard. But I kept asking myself, what do I want to be able to say I built when this is done? And the answer was always something I could be proud of, something that reflected who I actually am, not who someone else needed me to be." The woman's eyes had gone a little bright. "That is beautiful. Your husband must be so proud." There was a long pause. Serena's smile did not waver, but something shifted in her eyes. "Thank you for your kind words. Please, enjoy your dinner." She excused herself gracefully and walked toward the kitchen, her composure intact. But Grant, still sitting at the bar, had heard the entire exchange, and he understood, perhaps for the first time, exactly what he had failed to see. Serena had not built this place in spite of their marriage. She had built it because their marriage had left her so much empty space that she had needed something to fill it with, something that would see her, something that would require her full presence and reward it with tangible proof of her worth. She had built a life that did not need him, and he had been too busy managing his own compartments to notice. That evening, there was a small gathering in the resort's wine garden. It was a weekly event, casual and optional, where guests could sample local wines and enjoy live music under the stars. Grant stayed in his room, unable to face the cheerful social atmosphere. But the sounds drifted through his open balcony door. Laughter, music, the low hum of conversation, and beneath it all, Serena's voice, warm and present, thanking people for coming, asking about their stays, embodying the role of beloved host. Grant poured himself another drink and stood on the balcony, looking out at the darkening ocean. He thought about calling Sienna, apologizing, trying to explain. But what was there to explain? She had been right. He had lied to himself as much as he had lied to her. He had framed his marriage as dead to justify his affair, but the truth was simpler and uglier. He had just stopped trying, stopped asking questions, stopped paying attention. And when Serena had stopped demanding his attention, he had assumed it meant she did not need it anymore. He had mistaken her exhaustion for indifference. He had mistaken her silence for permission. And now he was standing in the evidence of everything he had missed, and there was no way to unsee it. The next morning, Grant checked out early. He did not see Serena. He asked the front desk to process his departure quietly, and they did, with the same seamless professionalism that had marked his entire stay. As he loaded his bag into his car, Timothy appeared, carrying a small box. "Miss Hankinson asked me to give you this." Grant took it, confused. Inside was a bottle of wine, not expensive or showy, just a local vintage, the kind served at the resort. And beneath it, a handwritten note on the same thick paper as the welcome message. "Thank you for staying at Halcyon Ridge. I hope your visit gave you clarity. Safe travels. S.H." Grant stared at the note for a long time. Clarity. Yes, that was exactly what this weekend had given him. Clarity that his wife was not the accommodating, distracted woman he had convinced himself she had become. Clarity that he had not been betrayed or blindsided. He had simply been allowed to continue underestimating someone who had grown tired of correcting him. Clarity that the power he thought he held in the marriage had always been conditional on Serena's willingness to let him believe it, and she was done pretending. Grant set the box on the passenger seat and drove away from Halcyon Ridge. In his rearview mirror, the resort grew smaller, then disappeared around a curve in the coastal road. He did not know what would happen next, but for the first time in 8 years, he understood that it was not his decision to make anymore. I want to pause the story here, because what we just witnessed is not about punishment or revenge or even justice in the traditional sense. This is about something deeper, something that sits in the center of so many relationships that slowly erode without anyone noticing until it is too late. Serena loved Grant. That love was real. It was not performative or strategic. It was the kind of love that makes you willing to bend, to accommodate, to prioritize someone else's needs over your own because you believe that is what partnership requires. But here's the thing about bending. If you do it long enough, you forget what it feels like to stand up straight. Serena spent 8 years adjusting her schedule, her dreams, her sense of self to fit into the spaces Grant left available. And Grant, whether he intended to or not, accepted that arrangement. He did not ask her to shrink. He just did not notice when she did. And because she made it look easy, because she never complained or demanded or made her sacrifices visible, he assumed they did not cost her anything. That is the quiet tragedy at the heart of so many partnerships. One person gives and gives, making it look effortless, and the other person receives and receives, never realizing that effortless is not the same as free. Serena's strength was not in the confrontation. It was not in exposing Grant or humiliating him or making him pay. Her strength was in the fact that she had built something real, something lasting, something entirely her own, while he was busy assuming she was too distracted to notice his betrayal. She reclaimed herself in the one way that could not be argued or diminished or explained away. She stood in the fullness of her own competence, in a space she had created, and let him see what he had failed to value. And that is the lesson I hope you are taking from this. If you are in a relationship where you are always the one adjusting, always the one accommodating, always the one making it easy for someone who never makes anything easy for you, I need you to hear this. Your flexibility is not weakness, but it is also not supposed to be your permanent state. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to build something that is entirely yours. You are allowed to stop teaching people that you will accept whatever they offer and start showing them what you actually deserve. And if that means some relationships cannot survive your full presence, then those were not the right relationships to begin with. Serena did not need Grant to see her in order to know her own worth. She had already proven it to herself, but she gave him the opportunity to confront the difference between who he thought she was and who she actually had always been. And that gap, that distance between his perception and her reality, was the thing that finally made the truth undeniable. So I am praying for you tonight. I am praying that you find the courage to stop shrinking, to stop making yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger, to stop pretending that love is supposed to cost you your identity. I am praying that you build something that is entirely yours, not in spite of your relationships, but because you deserve to exist as a whole person, not just as someone's partner or someone's support system. I am praying for the strength to set boundaries, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when people accuse you of being difficult or demanding or selfish, because asking to be seen is not selfish, it is necessary. I am praying that when you stand in the fullness of who you are, in a space you created, surrounded by evidence of your own capability, you feel peace, not bitterness, not the need to prove anything, just peace, the kind that comes from knowing you did not lose yourself in the process of loving someone else. And I am praying that the people in your life who truly love you will rise to meet you there, that they will see you, not as you make yourself to be, but as you actually are, and that they will choose you, fully and without hesitation. But if they cannot, if they only love the version of you that made their life easier, then I am praying you have the clarity to walk away, because you deserve to be loved in your entirety, not just in the parts that are convenient. You are enough. You have always been enough, and anyone who made you feel otherwise was not paying close enough attention. Now, let me take you back to the story one last time, because Serena's journey is not over. She has reclaimed her power. She has set her boundary. But what comes next will define not just who she is, but who she chooses to become. 2 weeks after Grant checked out of Halcyon Ridge, Serena sat in her office reviewing the plans for the resort's expansion. A second restaurant, an event space for weddings, a partnership with a local conservation group to protect the coastal habitat. The work was exciting, fulfilling, exactly the kind of challenge she had always wanted. But beneath the professional satisfaction was a quiet ache that had not yet resolved itself. Grant had called 3 times since he left. She had not answered. He had sent emails. She had not read them. He had, through his attorney, requested a meeting to discuss their future. She had asked her own attorney to handle it. She was not avoiding him out of anger. She was avoiding him because she did not yet know what she wanted. Divorce felt inevitable. The marriage had been over long before the weekend at the resort. But Serena had spent 8 years defining herself in relation to Grant, and even now, with all her clarity about his failures and her own worth, she was still untangling the threads of who she was outside of that relationship. Timothy knocked on the doorframe. "Do you have a minute?" Serena looked up and gestured for him to enter. He sat across from her, his expression careful. "I wanted to check in, see how you were doing, really doing." Serena set down her pen. "Honestly, I do not know. I feel relieved and sad and angry, and also strangely proud of myself, which feels ridiculous." "It is not ridiculous," Timothy said gently. "You handled an impossible situation with more grace than most people would have managed. You did not lash out. You did not collapse. You just stood in your truth and let him deal with the consequences. That takes strength." Serena smiled, though it was edged with exhaustion. "I keep waiting to feel triumphant, like I won something, but I do not. I just feel tired." "That is because this was not about winning. It was about reclaiming yourself. And that is hard work. It does not come with fireworks." Serena nodded slowly. "I built this place because I needed something that was mine, something Grant could not touch or minimize or take credit for. And I am proud of it. I am. But now I keep wondering, what do I build next? Who am I when I am not defining myself in opposition to a marriage that was not working?" Timothy leaned forward. "You are whoever you decide to be. That is the whole point. You spent 8 years accommodating someone else's vision of who you should be. Now you get to choose. And maybe that is scarier than the alternative, but it is also freedom." That evening, Serena walked the grounds of Halcyon Ridge alone. The resort was full, as it often was on weekends. Guests sat on the terrace sipping wine and watching the sunset. A couple walked hand in hand through the gardens. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear children laughing. All of it existed because she had decided it should. All of it had required her to hold firm to a vision, even when it would have been easier to compromise. And she realized, standing there in the soft evening light, that she did not regret any of it. Not the resort, not the years of work, not even the marriage, painful as its ending was, because all of it had taught her something essential. She was capable of building a life that reflected her values. She was capable of standing alone. She was capable of being seen, fully and without apology. Grant had not given her that. She had given it to herself. And whatever came next, whatever shape her life took after the divorce was finalized and the dust settled, she would carry that knowledge with her. She was enough. She had always been enough. And she did not need anyone's permission to take up space. 3 months later, Serena signed the final divorce papers in her attorney's office. Grant had not contested anything. He had agreed to her terms quietly, without argument. She wondered if he felt guilty or just defeated. She did not ask. When it was done, she walked out into the late afternoon sun and stood on the sidewalk, feeling the weight of 8 years lift from her shoulders. She was no longer Serena Castellano. She was just Serena Hankinson, the woman who had built something beautiful, the woman who had reclaimed herself, the woman who knew, beyond any doubt, that her worth was not conditional on anyone else's ability to see it. She drove back to Halcyon Ridge, the ocean visible in glimpses through the trees. When she arrived, Timothy was waiting in the courtyard with a bottle of champagne. "I thought we should mark the occasion," he said. Serena laughed, surprised by the lightness in her chest. "Is this appropriate? Celebrating a divorce?" "We are not celebrating the divorce. We are celebrating you, the fact that you chose yourself, the fact that you are still standing, the fact that you built all of this and you are just getting started." They opened the champagne and poured 2 glasses. Timothy raised his. "To new beginnings." Serena touched her glass to his. "To knowing what I am worth." They drank, and the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. And Serena felt, for the first time in longer than she could remember, like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Not because someone had chosen her, but because she had chosen herself. Thank you for staying with me through Serena's story. I know it was not easy. These stories rarely are, but I believe they matter. Because somewhere out there, someone needed to hear that you can love deeply and still choose yourself. That you can be kind without being small. That you can walk away from people who do not see you without becoming bitter or broken. Serena's power was never about revenge. It was about remembering who she was beneath the accommodations and compromises. It was about building something that reflected her true self and standing in it unapologetically. And that is available to you too. If this story resonated with you, if it made you feel seen or gave you permission to stop shrinking or reminded you that your worth is not negotiable, I would be honored if you joined our family here. Hit that subscribe button. Become part of the billionaire romance community. This channel is built on stories like Serena's. Stories about people who found their way back to themselves. Stories about dignity, boundaries, resilience, and the quiet power of knowing you are enough. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life might shift because you cared enough to pass it along. And leave a comment. Tell me what this brought up for you. Tell me where you are in your own journey. I read every single one, and your stories matter to me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having the courage to sit with hard truths and still believe in better endings. You are worth being seen, fully, exactly as you are. I will see you in the next story.